Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Slim Jim finally back after literally ages. It's been like 4 years since I last did a video, but I decided I'd get back into it. And so I want to do some content on a game that I absolutely love, and that's World of Warcraft. And I kind of want to talk about something that's been bothering me for a while now, and that's the problems I have with Legion. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Legion. The pros outweigh the cons, and in my opinion, it's the best expansion that I've played since Wrath. And I'll probably make a video with all the things that I love about Legion, but that's for another time. And today I want to talk about the bad. And so obviously not everyone's going to agree with me, but I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So I have a couple things that I'd like to talk about, but I want to start with my biggest issue, and that's artifact weapons. On paper, artifact weapons were a great idea. They add this extra level of progression that's just as satisfying for non-raiders as it is for raiders. I just think it does a little bit more bad than good. Like, why are there millions of people running around with Ashbringers? It just boggles my mind. But my personal immersion aside, the trait system kind of sucks when you start thinking about it. Because artifact power is spec specific, in my opinion, this causes a really single-minded playstyle. And well, while since 7.2, it's not as bad with all the new artifact knowledge ranks allowing you to catch up your other specs fairly easy, the issue still exists. And because of the trait system, I feel like I can't play anything besides my main spec. Otherwise, I feel like a liability to the rest of my raid because I don't have as many traits in the other weapons, and as a result, my DPS is substantially lower. And even on my main spec, I dislike this system because I'm a busy guy with school, work, the likes, all that stuff, and I don't have nearly as much time to farm artifact power as some other people, and I don't feel like my DPS should be lower just because I have less time to play during the week. And don't even get me started on playing alts. Yeah, I know the catch up is there for that, but in no way will it allow me to trade my main for an alt if my raid needs a different class or I just feel like re-rolling. And obviously, re-rolling isn't even an option for a person with time limitations like me. Otherwise, I'd be further behind the rest of my raid if I were to re-roll. And like I said, 7.2 does alleviate this a little bit, but issue is still there, and obviously not for everyone. Um, I like to play other games too, so even in my free time, I don't spend it always farming artifact power like some people do, so that does kind of allow me to fall behind and makes it a little difficult for me to stay on par with the rest of my guild. And relics, relics. These are hardly substitutes for weapon drops from bosses, especially when they have an impact on DPS like they do. And they really do have a fairly low drop rate. So they're just not satisfying to get after downing a boss. You know, one of the best things about raiding in the past was downing a boss, and finally getting your ash candy or whatever. And I know ash candy wasn't the best weapon ever, but it was the first thing to come to my head. And relics can't replicate that satisfaction, especially because they do nothing to visually change your character. And when you need a total of 9 good relics for all your specs to be viable, 12 if you play a druid, and with the drop rates and how you're competing with the rest of your raid form, it really adds to that I don't feel like I can play any other spec feeling because they do impact DPS a fair amount. And all my weapons personally have multiple points in their extended tree from 7.2, but my off specs have much, much weaker relics, and it causes this dip in DPS that I just feel like I can't use them until my loot master is nice and nobody else rolls on relics, and then I get it for an off spec. And it's because of this I really think Blizzard really needs to go back to the old way of getting new weapons. Is just so much more satisfying and allows people like me with fewer hours to play to stay competitive with the rest of my raid. I don't have to be on for hours throughout the week to just make sure that I get that little bit more artifact power to stay on par with my raid. In the past I could raid 3 nights a week, get a couple upgrades, and then if I don't play WoW for the rest of the week, it's not that big a deal because I'm not really missing out on much. But with artifact power, you really start to fall behind if you miss even a single day of doing just everything to get artifact power. But let's move away from artifacts onto something I know a lot of people agree with me on, and that's legendaries. Yeah, a lot of people have problems with the current legendaries. But as a hunter, the first legendary I ever got was the legs that heal me for standing still. Thanks. Thanks, Blizzard, for giving me such a simple and just an item that is basically just a stat boost, because do you know how many times you stand still in a raid? Barely ever. I also got Safuz, which I guess that's not all that bad, but it's still not great. Kind of a meme legendary. But since then, I've gotten the marksman boots, which paired with the the night hold 4-piece is just incredible. I can use True Shot almost every minute, if less. And I know a bunch of other people who have gotten screwed by, getting their shitty legendaries too, and for their class. And I really think Blizzard needs to go back to the vanilla way of getting legendaries. Like, you remember how hard it was to get Atiesh or Thunder Fury back in the day? And that's what made them legendary, is because when you saw someone with that item, you knew they went to hell and back to get it. Bring this back. Getting these legendaries is the most satisfying way to get legendaries. And I know Blizzard wants to make it, fair for everyone so everybody has a chance to get the same stuff. But without the extreme difficulty to acquire these items, are they really legendary? No. They're just orange. They're just orange. If there's no challenge to getting them, they're just powerful items that are colored orange. And I know it'll make the casuals mad, but legendaries just, they're not legendary unless they're hard to get. It's the difficulty that makes them legendary, just like Vanilla Nax or MS. Things like this need to be inaccessible to most people because that's what makes them legendary. That's what creates the myths and the, oh, I wish I could be like that, And it gives people that goal to strive for. And without that goal, you get what we have now with all the people, getting their legendaries and going through LFR and then saying there's no more content to do because they've seen it all. And people need goals to strive for, otherwise they just get bored. And if Blizzard were to make legendaries as hard as they were to get back in vanilla, maybe a couple years down the road they can get rid of LFR 2 and bring back the true legendary status of being that top end raider or getting those items that the other player base just yearns to be. They see this picture of the glorious raider with his super amazing weapon and they just wish they could be that guy. And then they go out and they have the goal of being that guy. And they try as hard as they can to succeed. And that's what makes an MMO fun, is having a goal to really have that sense of accomplishment when you accomplish that goal. So, I don't know. I really think Blizzard needs to stop catering so much to the casual crowd and really bring back some of the difficulty in the game so that people really can form their own personal goals of how they want to play the game and, set out to achieve those. Because, like I said, that is what makes, getting these items and getting these achievements satisfying. So, finally, my last issue with Legion is item level. And so, I know item level has been around for ages, since Wrath of the Lich King, but item level in Legion is probably the worst I've ever seen it. Um, the insane item level requirements people set for content is just absurd. So, you want to run this +3 Maw of Souls? Do you have an 870 item level? No? Sucks. Go find another group. Obviously, the way around this is to make your own group, but not everyone wants to do that, especially with Mythic Plus when they probably don't have the level key they're looking to do. There's been plenty of times that I'm like, I need to do a +12 or a +13 for a chance of getting, an upgrade for this one slot that I just need a little bit of a boost in. But I can't get in because I don't have a 900 item level, which is completely outscaling, the dungeon. And now, item level is player made, so we kind of brought this upon ourselves, but Blizzard definitely brought it to a new level with the whole Warforging and Titanforge system, and that just really makes the feeling of getting loot not exciting, Just, I don't know. You see numbers, just this big number at the top of the box when you get an item that says item level 905, and you go, oh, well, it has worse substats than my item level 890 piece of gear, but I should probably equip it just because it has a higher item level. That's not satisfying. And, I understand, like, having item level was, an easy way to compare, gear and how good the gear a player had. And I completely agree that this is a viable system to assess a player's gear level, but adding the war forging and the titan forging is just bad. So I really think that we need to go back to the vanilla style of loot. It was just so much more satisfying to get loot that way. Like, there was nothing better than getting that trinket or helmet that you've been hoping to drop for months from that boss. And then to have it finally drop. And then you get it. And that's the best feeling in the world. But because of the whole item level, and then with the Warforged, Titanforge system, it removes the satisfaction. There are no more best in slot items. I guess there are still theoretically like best in slot items if you count like your Nighthold set pieces, but those are best in slot for everyone, and the only other thing that could be best in slot is like trinkets. But if you get an item that's like 15 item levels higher, you're kind of obligated to equip it, even if its substats just aren't as great. It has versatility and mastery, but you want crit and haste. Sucks. It's got more intellect. It's 15 item levels higher. Guess you gotta equip it, right? And I know I probably sound like one of those like vanilla with so much better guys right now, but That's not what I'm trying to say. It's just there are things that Vanilla WoW did great, and there are things about Legion that are great. And personally, I think the best thing for WoW is to combine the best of both worlds. Take the loot system with really difficult to get legendaries, no more item level, that satisfaction of getting that best in slot item that you've been aiming for months, and combine that with, this improved gameplay of current WoW, and I really think WoW could be like the best game in the world all over again, just like it was 13 years ago. Wow. 13 years of World of Warcraft. That's a long time. And it's still one of the most played games in the world. That's crazy. But I do think if it's going to stay that way, things need to change. But that's kind of all my issues with Legion. Just, I really don't like the artifact weapon system. I think if they brought it back in a different way, just as kind of like Talents 2.0, like a secondary talent tree that you could get points in, but without being tied to a specific weapon, it's just a passive thing. And then you still have your weapons that you drop from bosses, and then you get those, and then get rid of the legendaries for everybody mindset and make them hard to get. And maybe get rid of LFR too, but meh, LFR isn't that big a deal. I still like LFR a little bit. It gives me time to, like, I don't know, get a hang of the raids. But then definitely the fact that, like, the whole item level with Warforged and Titanforged, the fact that loot from LFR could be more powerful than normal or heroic loot because it Titanforged, that's just stupid. So maybe keep LFR, but get rid of item level, and buy a mission, Warforging, Titanforging, and basically go back to Cataclysm. Item level is still a thing, but LFR didn't have the potential to give you better stuff than, normal and heroic. Oh, I guess that's kind of not true, because there was that whole thing about people exploiting LFR loot tables to get tier pieces and stuff. But that's just because the passives on the items were powerful enough to compensate for the lack in stats that you were losing. But, well, anyway, that's my issues with Legion and the current state of WoW. Like, I still love World of Warcraft, and Legion specifically, like I said, I think it's a great expansion. The pros outweigh the cons, but personally, these are things that need to change about WoW. So, do you guys agree or disagree? Because I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments. So, go ahead and drop those on down there. Like I said, love to hear what you guys think about all this stuff. And if you enjoyed the video, leave it a like and hit that subscribe button. Alright? And until next time, guys, I'll see ya.